Episode 36.
Don't be afraid to think really big and just have faith. Being a business owner is really, really hard. But if this is what you're meant to do, the right people, the right opportunities, they will come along. And sometimes you'll think something really big is going to happen, and it doesn't, and it's disappointing. But have faith because something else will.
Welcome to the Govcon Giants Podcast, federal contracting for people on the outside looking in. If you are here to learn how to win a piece of the pie without getting your face smashed in, then you've tuned in to the right place. Now, the giant that not only walks the walk, but talks the talk, your host, Eric Coffie.
This past September, we were at the HubZone National Conference in Virginia, and a woman approached our booth telling us about the great work her company was doing with blind and other people with disabilities. So we decided to investigate further to find out who was this great entrepreneur that was both successful and providing a social mission at the same time. We later learned that the company is Pearl Interactive and the founder, Mary Korn. Prior to becoming a small business owner, Mary was a clinical social worker, and that background gave her the understanding of the disabled and disenfranchised. So when she founded Pearl Interactive in 2004, she wanted to make it her social mission of giving hiring priority to people with barriers to employment. Over the last 15 years, she has grown to more than 1,100 employees, providing contact center, program management, and sourcing staffing services primarily to the federal government. Listen to her story firsthand to learn how she took her first leap into the federal marketplace and the challenges she faced growing her women-owned small business. Welcome our next giant, Mary Korn.
So today, on today's guest, we have Mary Korn. Welcome, Mary.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well. And yourself today?
Great.
Mary, so can you tell us the name of your company?
It's Pearl Interactive Network.
Okay. Did it come from somewhere, the name? How did you come up with that name?
About 20 years ago, I was looking at developing an interactive lifestyle television show. And I knew that it might be a series of shows, and it never launched. And in 2004, when I decided to start another business, I already had the name registered. So Pearl comes from my maiden name, and my maiden name was Perlmutter.
Ah, okay. That's interesting. I always suspect there's history behind a name of a company.
Always.
You know? So before starting Pearl, you worked at a company, American Health Holding?
Yes.
Okay. Now, it says you were the Senior VP of Marketing?
I was.
Okay. Now, how did you get that role?
Well, I had started at the very beginning. The company, there were 4 of us who every now and then a team comes together and they do some amazing things. So the company had been purchased out of bankruptcy. So we built a company that had less than 0 revenues.
Wow.
And we built it to a $33 million company that flipped and sold again for $600 million. But it was an amazing team of the 4 of us that built this extraordinary medical management company. So I did that once, and much of what I learned in that venture is what I brought to Pearl Interactive. But the big difference is Pearl Interactive is a for-profit social enterprise that from day one gives hiring priority to people with barriers to work, such as disabled vets, military spouses, people with disabilities, and people living in economically challenged areas.
Wow. I've read somewhere that comes from your experiences working as a clinical social worker.
Yes, I'm a clinical social worker that loves business. And very early on, I learned that you can absolutely marry a business and a for-profit mission. So we are considered a social enterprise because from day one till current, our hiring priority is always populations with challenges to work.
Can you explain further? What does that mean when you say population with challenges? What kind of people we're talking
Um,
about?
well, disabled vets, people
Okay.
with disabilities,
Okay.
military spouses, people living in hub zones. People living in hub zones many times live in economic deserts.
Interesting. No, and I've seen that before. And reading your thing. You recently became home certified, correct?
We did.
Okay. Okay.
So, in line with our social mission, the last count we got, because I get counts every week, we're about 56% of our workforce are people that fall into one of the 5 major buckets of people with barriers.
Okay. Okay. And those, like you said, were hub zone, service disabled veterans, spouse of veterans, people with disabilities.
Yes,
Now, so you started Pearl Interactive in 2004, and you expressed the primary difference was the social piece, right? The social mission. Now,
yes,
it's interesting because I think now they have a new term for that, social entrepreneurship.
yes.
Did they have that when you started?
No,
Okay.
no. It blossomed and
Uh-huh.
mushroomed,
Wow.
and it was so nascent when I started in 2004. And it's just remarkable. It's just seeing it flourish.
Right, right. No, no, that's true. Like I said, nowadays we've heard of that, but that's why I asked the question because you probably were pioneering that before there was ever a term for it.
Uh, it was around, but very limited. And now and I love it. There's this whole ecosystem here in Columbus where there's actually it's called Social Venture Partners. It's a venture fund that provides funding to promising social entrepreneurs.
Wow, wow. No, that's incredible. Keep
Oh, it's
going.
been wonderful. I'm on their board, and I love being involved, and it's like my way of giving back.
Nice, nice. When you started Pearl Interactive, um, when you first started, did you have a board of advisors, a board of directors? Was it just you starting out? How did that transpire?
We started out very small.
Okay.
Uh, and by the way, we've never received outside funding.
Okay.
We have no debt, and all the funding we have has been organic.
Nice. Nice.
So we
Incredible.
use the infusion of profits to further the growth of the company.
Okay. And what was your mission when you first started it?
The mission always was from day one to give hiring priority to people with challenges to work
Okay.
while making a profit.
Okay. Okay. But in terms of the marketplace that you were going after, the space.
It was commercial at first, and it was commercial for the first 5 to 6 years. And it was with the profits that I made in the commercial that I ventured into federal. And because I knew it would be a minimum of 2 years before we came close to closing a sizable contract.
In the federal space, correct?
Yes.
And
And in hindsight, I realized we were really lucky.
do you really think so?
Oh my God. Now that I know how hard and long it takes to get new federal contracts, I realized it was a lot of luck.
It's interesting that you say that because one of my questions was, how did you sidestep the roller coaster ride and ups and downs of the long fiscal cycles?
Oh my God. First of all, the only way I could have survived getting into it was having margins generated from commercial.
Okay. Okay.
And then once we got this one big contract, it was years before we got another big one. It's kind of like whale hunting. You could go years. And I don't know if other contractors tell you that, but you could literally go years before you get your next contract.
Right. Right. Wow. So again, you started in the commercial sector. And what were the services of the business originally?
So contact center work, and that's our core business, is we do contact center work,
Okay.
has always been what we started out with. So when we first started out, our market was associations. Then we started getting bigger and bigger. And then I attended a seminar, and I think it was by the SBA. And the light went on because I realized the commercial contracts were also a roller coaster ride, because they would be short term and they would last 4 months or 6 months. And I realized here I was hiring people who hadn't worked in years, and suddenly the contract would be over. And I thought, if I'm really going to be service to people, I'm going to give them really good jobs that have career pathways, have training, have benefits, and are long term. And that's what all the attraction was for me in the government space. I wanted long term contracts.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say contact center work, can you define that for people out here who may not know what that is?
Yes, it's making outbound calls, inbound calls. It could be administrative services. It's outsourcing services that companies don't have the resources to provide internally.
Okay.
So our core competency is our contact center services, and under that umbrella is Tier 1 help desk, inbound call center, outbound, and administrative services.
Tier 1 help desk, outbound, and inbound administrative services.
And administrative services.
Okay. All right. So you began. So you went to the meeting with you went to an actual conference or event. You met someone from the SBA. You learned about the federal marketplace, and then what happened next?
I was smitten. I suddenly realized I found the answer that had been plaguing me, which is how to get away from your more short-term contact center contracts into very large, very long-term contracts. Because I'm a clinical social worker that had a very hard time with hiring people and letting them go when the contracts ended. Mm-hmm. And at the time I started out, I just wasn't lucky enough to get, I just did not stumble on long-term call center contracts. They were all short-term.
Okay.
And I hated the fact that people would work after having been unemployed for 7 years. I would hire people, and then I couldn't keep them.
Wow. Okay. So you then you started getting some short-term federal contracts.
No, when we got the federal contracts, they were very long-term.
Okay. So when you finally did, after you learned about the federal marketplace, you started pursuing some of the contracts. Do you remember the first one that you won?
Oh, yes. It was the most exciting moment of my life. It was what I always dreamed of. And it was kind of like, oh my God, we went from 20 employees to 420 in 90 days.
Wow.
And it was so scary because I knew I was going to have to put everything at risk to fund it because I couldn't find a bank to fund it. So I had to do what's called factoring. And everything I owned was put as collateral.
Wow.
And that was incredibly scary.
Wow.
But I did it.
But you did it. You did it.
Yeah.
No. And I think that is that's really important to let people know. And actually it brings me to one of the questions, because you grew really rapidly. You're at 1,100 employees now?
We will be in March. We'll be at 1,100.
Right. So, I mean, we're talking about in 15 years. That's like 73 people a year, or 6 a month.
I never looked at it that way, but the reality is it comes in big volumes. Okay.
So you ramped up.
It's never that few employees at a time. It's like I said, it's like a whale. So the contracts we get are 400 employees here, and maybe 12 employees here, and then 700 employees there. So they come in big fell swoops.
So how does a 20-person company ramp up to 420 employees in 90 days?
With an amazing team. I keep coming back to, I think success is a combination. Yes, hard work is a big part of it. And then I think hard work, a great team, and luck. But it all starts with a vision. And I always had a vision of having a very large company, always.
Okay.
So it starts with a vision of what do you want?
This is great. Now, you had a vision. Did you have a vision board?
No, I just had this vision. I had this vision of 1,000 employees, and now my vision's 5,000 employees. I'm not done yet.
You're not done. I love it. So you had a vision of 1,000 employees, man, and then you get a contract that you go from 20 to 420 employees.
It was wild.
That's
and wonderful.
No, that's incredible. I love it.
We still have that contract, by the way.
Do you really?
Yep.
So it's still ongoing.
That's the thing about federal contracts. There's a lot of pluses and minuses in federal. And I'm sure, how many interviews have you done?
Probably 50.
Okay. So some of what you're hearing, you've probably heard before.
Absolutely.
But the pluses are if you just stick to it and are tenacious and have a really solid formula. Well, it's so much hard work and effort. The big payback is long-term contracts that are multiple year and can be very large. And while the margins are not great, the margins also allow you to capture your G&A, which commercial contracts don't do.
Right. No, that's true.
And you give good jobs. You give good jobs with great benefits.
Right. And I could say the same thing. And my particular experience comes from construction. So we always, yes. But in the same token, we do have multi-year contracts that are 5-year, 7-year contracts. And again, that for anyone, like you said, that allows you to keep on key employees, right? Because those key managers, you could afford to pay them, and they know that they have guaranteed projects for the next 5 years, and you could roll that into another 5-year contract. So, I agree 100%. I agree wholly, because construction is cyclical also. It's a cyclical business.
Yeah.
It's a cyclical business.
But you can also create career pathways for really good people,
right?
Because long-term contracts, people could grow.
Right.
And we love that. We love to hire internally and see people blossom.
Nice. Are the same 20 people with you, or have they changed from the beginning?
Oh, they've changed. Those 20 people were all home-based, and they were mostly on commercial contracts.
Okay.
I still have one who's with me, but it's been 15 years.
Wow. No. I was just curious. About that. Now, today, what's your mix in terms of private versus federal?
We're 100% federal today.
Really?
We are 100% federal.
Wow.
And it takes so much money to invest. There's such a huge investment in the federal infrastructure that it actually makes sense, because it's just, once you figure it out and you become an expert, there's a lot of reasons just to stay focused on federal.
Did you have, when you were doing the federal contracting, were there people that helped you along the way? Not talking about internally. I mean, like, did the SBA, did they play a role? Was any type of training that you took that helped you learn about the federal marketplace?
There were so many people that came along that were like these guides, because it's so hard to learn. Have you heard that from everyone too?
Oh, people have talked about the need for a training program to teach people how to navigate this particular marketplace. But
It's so
convoluted.
complicated.
You
It's
say
so convoluted.
Yeah.
It's complicated. It's convoluted.
Yeah.
And I've yet to be in one training program that teaches you A to B,
Right.
A to Z. How do you do it? Because there are different paths for different
Yes.
people.
And I think
And it
also
really
depending
depends
on
on your industry.
that's what I was going to say. I think it's very industry driven, dependent, and also agency, because each agency has different culture.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it's
Yes.
hard to teach culture.
It's hard to teach culture, but the other thing I love about federal is you have to be absolutely operating with the highest level of integrity, because it's such a small world. And if you do anything wrong, that whisper turns into a yell. You have to be so impeccable with everything you do, the service you deliver, the quality of what you do, and how you engage with people. And I like that. I like being a part of industry that, for the most part, integrity is critical.
Wow. No, I agree. One of my guests, she tells all her staff they have to deliver excellence every day.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's wonderful. It's for me, like you said, when the whisper that turns into a yell also works in your favor when you do good quality work.
Yes.
So if
yes.
Yes, and that's the part for me that I try and tell and people is that when you do a really good job, you could be referred by other agencies, with intra agencies, other departments will refer you as well.
Yes.
Have you found that in your experiences?
I haven't. Although once or twice I've heard from an agency, but it's very common to get these random calls from primes that hear about our reputation and want to work with us.
Okay.
And that's the other thing is, especially for people starting out in federal, it's so important to focus on absolute fantastic quality.
Nice.
And relationships.
Relationships are key. Now, tell us today you're doing telehealth.
We have a telehealth pilot that we just launched in June.
Okay.
And we're also doing our legacy business, which is call center.
Okay.
Large call center operations.
Okay. So I was reading an article and it said people in rural areas lack access to both healthcare and jobs. We see telehealth as an emerging technology that could be transformative in the way remote call center technology was when we started Pearl 15 years ago.
Yes.
So can you explain? I've heard of telehealth, but I'm not too clear on how it works.
So when we decided to get into telehealth, especially in federal, I hired a telehealth subject matter expert to do some voluminous research. So telehealth means different things to different people. So if you're in a room with 100 people, there's a really good chance you're going to get maybe 10 to 20 different definitions of what it means.
Okay.
The typical belief of what telehealth is a doc in a box. But for Pearl, our telehealth is complex case management supported by innovative telehealth technology. So what that means is we have technology deployed either via smartphone or technology that goes to the person's home, and we have the ability through a 24/7 call center staffed by a nurse or care navigator to monitor the vital sign or smart home activity alerts to, on a granular daily basis, manage the care of the patient. The outcomes being greater access to care, lower ER, hospital, emergency room admissions, greater patient satisfaction, and job creation. So we have a pilot with 250 patients, and to be a patient in our program, you have to have a minimum of 2 chronic conditions.
Okay.
And those patients all have vital sign monitors that monitor everything from blood pressure to glucose to oxygen to weight. And so the most wonderful thing about this model is the patients get much greater care. We also absolutely encourage the family members to be engaged, because the more the family is engaged, the more the patient will be engaged.
Right.
So it's giving people with chronic conditions who either are at work or at home far greater intensity of care.
And what were their alternatives before having to be in a facility?
Going in and out of the hospital.
Right. Right.
Being alone. Sometimes the call from us could be the only great interaction that patient has all day.
Oh, well. So you see this as a model moving forward.
I see this as we'll always stay with our legacy because it's our bread and butter, but I see telehealth as being our future.
No, I know that especially the challenges that they're having at the VA hospital with so many.
Oh, I would
of the
love
families.
to get into the VA.
Yeah.
I would love to get into the VA.
Okay. Well, maybe we could talk about that after the call. It's over with.
Okay.
What recommendations do you have for someone that's getting started today in the federal space?
Find a mentor.
Okay.
Find a mentor. Pay for services that can save you time and money and allow you to do what it is you do best. So very early on, I knew I could never do my finances. So very early on, I got somebody to manage my finances. The other thing I would recommend is there are companies that I could recommend that will do mining, meaning they'll invest, they already invested in the Bloomberg or Deltek, and if you give them your NAICS codes, they'll do research on bids that are supposed to come out in 10 to 15 months out, so that you can start cultivating relationships.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is take a realistic assessment of who you are and who your team is, and as much as possible, try to outsource your weaknesses.
Okay. And what we can do is in the show notes page, we can include some of those references for the companies that you have.
Sure.
If you just send us an email, and we can just make sure that our show notes page will include all the references that you have.
All right.
Any favorite quotes of yours?
Start with the vision. Start with the vision first. Don't be afraid to dream big. Be bold. Wherever you are, try to find a group of like people that you engage with. So I have a group of business owners I get together with once a month. That's been incredibly helpful. The SBA and PTAC are a phenomenal resource to people getting started. There is so much you can do at no charge. This will vary by industry, but if you really want to do work in federal, you need to have the money to network at events inside the Beltway.
Mm.
And if you don't have the money to do that, but you have a commercial part of your business, wait till your revenues are high enough that you can afford to invest, because it will take 2 years, if not more, maybe 3 years or 4 years before you get your first big contracts.
Nice. Any books that you give to people or recommend reads for people just in general in terms of business, or maybe to women-owned business owners?
Well, one book that has had a massive impact is Blue Ocean Strategies. Highly recommend that, because in the federal space, it is critically important to have a discriminator. So for us, the discriminator is giving hiring priority to disabled vets, military spouses, especially people living in economically challenged areas. That resonates. And that's a great discriminator. And the fact that we're woman-owned and have HubZone, that's a discriminator. And the fact that we've got experience with very large call centers and have great quals. It's so important to read a book that helps define what makes you different. Because in federal, it is neck-on-neck competition. So if price is equal, what is it that you have that's a discriminator that makes you stand out?
Nice. I like it. I like it. You're part of a few organizations: Women's Small Business Accelerator, National Association of Women Business Owners.
Yes.
Do you think that that's important for people to join federal organizations?
Yes. NCMA is a really good one. The other one for women is the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce. They have amazing events that are so well organized. And what's great about their events is that they're small enough that you can really talk to the small business people and with different agencies. It's much more intimate. They are wonderful to attend.
Okay. No, we're taking notes, and we'll have, again, like I said, we'll have everything listed on here.
Good.
What would you tell your younger self today? What would you do differently?
Okay, so this is going to sound kind of strange, but you can see where your world is going by looking at the sequence of the dots that start to connect. And always stick with your heart and always stick with your gut, because it's rarely wrong. And don't be afraid to think really big and just have faith. Being a business owner is really, really hard. But if this is what you're meant to do, the right people, the right opportunities, they will come along. And sometimes you'll think something really big is going to happen, and it doesn't, and it's disappointing. But have faith, because something else will.
Nice. Nice. What would you tell women business owners out there that are getting started?
I would tell them to become politically active. Ohio just had our governor sign a bill to recognize certification for women-owned businesses. Our group is, at least in Ohio, is incredibly vocal and political. Get involved, pay it back. I feel like so many wonderful people have come along, and anything I could just do to support other, not just women business owners, but business owners, I'm happy to be there. And I make a point, no matter how busy I am, that if someone just wants to talk, I make the time.
And I've heard that from so many people out there that have been on my show, that they've all said the same thing. They've been very thankful and gracious for the life that they've been given, the experiences that they've had,
absolutely,
that they want to give back and share with others. I mean, I've had some people go as far as actually they have groups that come into their offices regularly that they kind of mentor, but they change it up. So they come in, maybe 5 people this week, and they talk to them about finance. I've had some people take in, like in the IT field, take in subcontractors, give them contracts, help them go through the contracts to learn, to gain the experience of actually what it is like to actually do a federal contract, a federal job.
That's great.
No,
that is great.
Yeah, no, there's some incredible people out here. It never seems to amaze me.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, no, it has.
That's good to hear.
So, what would you say as some final parting words for everyone listening?
If you decide federal contracts are what you want to do, have enough financial stamina to get you through how long it's going to take. The other thing that I learned the hard way is be very strategic about going for what you want, meaning don't wait for it to come out on FedBiz Ops or Deltek or Bloomberg. What you have to do is trace opportunities that are 18 to 24 months out and get to know the contracting officer, get to know the primes. And when you approach the primes, they are hounded by smalls that want to do business with them. They will hear you if you bring opportunities to them. So go with a gift. It's kind of like what your mother told you as a kid. Never go to a place you're invited empty-handed. If you want to pursue larges, find opportunities that you could team on so that you give them something, they'll remember you when they find something. Absolutely go to networking events, take cards, follow up, get meetings. And it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be really worthwhile.
Wow, that was very well said. Go ahead.
And think really big.
Think big.
Think
I like
really
how you keep saying
big.
think really big. Think really big.
Think
Listen,
big.
everyone out there, do you guys hear Mary? She says think big. It doesn't cost
big.
anyone anything to think big. It's free.
No. And the truth is, you'll spend a lot more time and effort on little itty bitty small clients that are going to be demanding as you are with clients with 400 employees.
Nice, nice. That was very well said. Well, Mary, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
No, I had a really good time. I want to appreciate it. And definitely, like I said, we're going to make sure all of the book recommendations and associations, organizations that you mentioned, as well as the companies that you're going to provide to us afterwards, so we can make that available to the listeners.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Thanks for listening to this episode. My hope is that Mary helped you understand the power of having a vision. Beyond that, let you see and believe that you don't need all those engineers, scientists, or doctors on your team in order to be successful. Having a vision and a dream is more important than a bunch of poorly led IT techies. I hope that this final 2019 episode resonates with someone out there listening, and that you make this decade the one that you too will set your sights high and start your government contracting business, the one that you always dreamed about. We need all of you, thousands of good companies helping lead the efforts towards solving the problems of the next decade. Be a part of the effort. Give it your all. Be remembered for something great. What's your legacy going to be? Happy New Year's. See you all in 2020.